when it comes to government and trusting it, and now we're moving forward with this new, when people listen to this, it'll be the night before the inauguration, and we're supposed to get all this transparency. Like, do you trust the transparency we'll get from our government, even with Trump in office?
Yeah, so I don't trust any human being because, again,
point.
one of my core philosophy, people ask, like, good and evil. I think that God creates us, right, with the capacity to choose good or evil.
Yep.
And I think there are times when people do choose evil. And so I think, trust should be left to probably a very small circle of people, your spouse, children to a certain degree. But outside of that, I believe that Kash Patel, especially Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard, and President Trump have constantly been talking about disclosure and giving people more information. And I think that that's, to me, what's like most exciting, like 100% Kash Patel.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, this dude is going to help, in a certain regard, save our country. Because I think one of the big issues are just like purely political, is that our country's institutions have become so corrupted that people don't trust it. And the next step, if people no longer trust an institution, and I don't trust that the system that I'm living in lawfully and abiding is working, then I'm not going to just lay down and die.
Right.
I will make sure to, do what I think is right for me and my community. And that's the other thing that I see happen in politics quite a bit, is this tribal identity stuff, right? And it comes from like all left and right. And when I see the tribal identity stuff, it's like, oh my goodness. But I think that Kash Patel and disclosure will help to show all of the terrible things that have happened and to try and say, we're going to change things and then rebuild trust. Because if we don't, I think that we have been like veering towards, say it, civil war, right? And I know that Tim Pool's
the
talked
balloons
about
are about to come out of the ceiling. Great.
And he's also talked about like having like prison island or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I think these concepts, I'm on the same page. But ultimately, when you think about, okay, where is our country going to go, and why are we going to go this way? It's because humans are really not that complicated. Like we aren't. We put our trust in certain systems to a certain degree. If that system stops delivering, we will take matters into our own hands because we have the ability to say, yeah, we're not just going to sit around. So I think the disclosure will come.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, I don't think that's not a good thing, but, for me, I believe in an eternal life.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do my best I can to have the impact that I can in this world.
Right.
And worry about just that.
Yeah.
But, outside of that, man, I hope that it goes that way. And I think
so
there's
too.
a great probability that we will get disclosure from a lot of things that our government has done.
Yeah.
That completely, will confirm a lot of the conversations that we've had in the last couple of years.
I think so too. Like we've had moments of disclosure. Even Hillary Clinton gave us disclosure when she was the secretary a while back. I mean, how long ago was that? 10 years ago?
Yeah, 8, 9, 10, yeah.
When she came out and apologized on behalf of our government for doing what we did to Guatemala.
Yeah.
Which was basically the same thing we did during Tuskegee.
Yeah.
We'll just give them syphilis.
Yep.
I don't know if they actually gave the Tuskegee guys syphilis or if they just didn't tell them they had syphilis.
Like, I think the allegation they didn't tell, but then
they watched them die.
They wanted to see how they reacted
for decades.
Yeah.
But in Guatemala, I think they actually
gave it to them?
Prostitutes into the communities, knowing that the prostitutes had syphilis.
Yeah.
And she came out and apologized, which is a whole other weird thing, But you're like, oh man, that is disturbing.
What? Why this one thing at this time?
Because I think they get off on it.
Sure.
I think they're like, Hillary's like, I just want them to know how evil we are, in my pantsuit. But I'm with you on Kash. So far, he's probably the only one I'm fully on board with still.
Sure.
And Hegseth I like a lot.
Sure.
I'm starting to get a little worried with Gabbard, whom I've always liked because of the FISA stuff.
Sure.
And she's kind of going back on the 702 stuff,
which
is like information gathering. It's supposed to be for only foreign adversaries, but it's always turned on us.
Always.
And then how do you define? Because even if this administration doesn't view us as domestic terrorists, they could set something in place where the next administration or whoever does think we are domestic terrorists, or anyone who's a dissident or anti-government. So I'm a little worried about that, and I hope they don't, because I think they just redid that warrant, the FISA stuff, in April, right?
Yeah, it passed.
So it's like another 2 years, and I think she was asked about it recently. She said she was for it. Maybe Pam Bondi as well. So like stuff like that, I'm like, ah. And when it comes to disclosure, I think my concern is they might give us disclosure.
But is it real?
But do we trust it? You know, like if they give me the Epstein list, why do I trust them? You know, it's like when what happened recently? Was it the Cybertruck stuff when it blew up?
Yeah.
And then Sean Ryan got all that grief about his emails, which I was suspicious of.
Yeah.
And then the FBI came out and confirmed things, and everyone's like, "Oh, the FBI said it." I'm like, so what if the FBI said it?
I know.
They always lie to you.
See, and this is the problem, and you mentioned this before. It's like we live in this choose your own reality, right?
Yep.
Then we're like, okay, we trust nothing. So if we trust nothing, well, now you've given power to just like chaos, right?
Yeah.
And in that chaos, you'll still find people that will come through. Because I think a lot of times, you know, people make these selfish moves because they think it's going to be personally enriching in some way, shape, or form, right? Like that's the drivers, like selfishness.
Yeah.
Selfishness drives a lot of the stuff that happens, that opens up the door to, I think, demonic entities. Like when you think about any type of evil intention, it is about me, 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 me. I don't care about what happens to other people.
Yeah.
Like you look at some of the most evil people in history, they'll be like, "Oh, he was such a great son."
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. The serial killer next door.
Right,
He was such a nice neighbor.
Dude, yeah. Oh, like, my husband was nice, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, he killed like 48
He
women or
also
whatever.
ate 40 people.
Yeah,
Great.
exactly. But I think that comes from like this desire to have this very, very selfish mindset and mentality. And I think that if you are trying to be selfless and live for things larger than yourself, again, whether it's God's, you know, again, this Genesis comes from like, oh, if we have this belief system and it starts here, it can apply to all these things. And I think that it comes naturally to us because we are creations of God.
Yep.
So try and live for something bigger than yourself, other than yourself, your children, your community, things like that. You have to take care of yourself. I'm not saying like just give everything away, and have no desire or agency.
Yeah.
But ultimately, when you think about disclosure and who do you trust and who's empowered, who's going to make money off of whatever, it's hard because everyone's like, oh, I'm the true debunker.
Yeah.
Like, oh, no, this is a debunk to the debunk.
Right.
And it's like, you're the psyop to the psyop to the psyop.
It's never ending.
And so I think that's also part of the system as well, is make it as chaotic as possible.
Yep.
So I always just go back to try and use as much discernment as possible. Anyone that ever says, you can only trust me, you can't trust anyone else, always going to be a red flag. If you come and say, that's interesting, here's what I think, this is my, you know, other position that I have on it. But hey, man, you know, I'm going to show you what I have. And if you come up with a different conclusion, more power to you, but we can still kind of be together.
Yeah.
Then I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
But when people are like, no, this is the only truth, any other version of the truth, I'm not going to trust. I'm like, I don't believe
Anyone
you.
who claims to be the authority of truth.
Yeah.
It's only God.
And only God. And it's because every other entity, every other human being always has a selfish perspective. And that's why you shouldn't ever 100% trust anybody, not even yourself.
I write about totally. I've written about this quite a bit, where I call it historical cubism, which is where you kind of think about how Picasso used to paint things, where he would circle a table and paint the vase from every angle, and that's kind of how you want to form your perspective on the things of the material world, because you want to get every type of angle possible and form your own opinion. But then the problem can be it leads to historical nihilism.
Yeah,
where we're at now, where you're saying
that's where we're at,
skeptical, overly skeptical, which we should be. Yeah. But it leads to then nothing is true at all,
ever,
and then there's total meaninglessness, which I think that is by design, like part of the system.
Yeah, and that's why I said, like, you know, trust in nothing, not even yourself, but always trust in God.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, even just from like a philosophical perspective, that's a good thing, because when I say like don't trust yourself, like what do you mean? It's like, well, don't trust that you know what is always right.
Yeah.
Like you never want to do that either.
Yeah.
That's why you trust in God. You reach to God, whether that's reading scripture, right? And if you do that, I think your life will just in general be better. Yeah. You will have less evil acts that you will be in charge of perpetrating to other people.
Yeah. It's a shield.
It's a great shield, man. But again, this is by design, and it's simple, but it can feel like it's so complicated because of all of these other distractions that end up coming into our life.
We're inundated with it.
And I would say, too, that when you talk about nihilism, that's another thing for me that has always been like such a motivator, is to just show people, like even about politics. People are very nihilistic, and I get it. Yeah. Like, doesn't matter what you do, man. Yeah. You know, everything's corrupt, everyone's whatever. And it's like, well, okay, let's say that you're mostly right.
Yeah.
So then you should go out there, and if you think that you can be a better vanguard against the corruption, go and get involved and become active.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
And to me, I didn't Okay, I don't make a lot of money. I'm literally like working class,
Yeah.
middle class. I'm around a lot of people.
So is Joe Biden.
Yeah.
So is Kamala.
Yeah. Raised in a middle class family.
I've heard this before.
I've heard this story, this whole song and dance. But go out there and become active, man.
Yeah, that's great.
we need more people that don't want to be involved in politics, but do care about the community, care about how society looks, getting involved.
Yeah.
And if you do that, then it'll be better. But yeah, I agree, man. That nihilism, it's brutal.
Politics shouldn't be a pipeline to fame.
It should not be.
It should be a pipeline to you changing your community and building a future of like legacy and stuff. Before we run out of time, I wanted to show you a clip and listen to it because it's kind of about whistleblowers. And I was wondering what your take was. You can pull up that clip about. It came out this morning. So we're talking about aliens and stuff, and like this whole alien narrative is very interesting to me and how it's ramping up. So we'll listen to this real quick. I want to hear what you have to say about these. I think it's like 4 minutes.
Ross, always good to have you. I mean, man, big news, big deal to be on this podcast with Don Jr. My question is, if he's showing interest, can we take that to mean that his dad will take it seriously in his new administration?
Well, firstly, good morning, Marky, and I certainly hope so. I can tell you that we're earnestly hoping that through Don Trump Jr., we can basically let the president know that the UAP issue is a priority for many Americans. People have had a gutsful with being gaslit and being told that they're not seeing what they're seeing. They want answers. They genuinely want transparency. And I think we're at a point now where with these witnesses we've got coming forward this weekend, Saturday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we're putting out a story where we've got multiple witnesses who are giving first-hand evidence of a retrieval program of, believe it or not, and I know this is confronting, alien craft. The allegation is that the United States has recovered non-human technology. And I know a former alien spacecraft. And the incredible thing about this, Marky, is everybody shakes their head and goes, oh, this is nonsense.
Yes, this is crazy. Yeah.
I know. And I thought that too when I first started investigating this, but believe me, it's true. And I find it absolutely incredible.
Talking about authority.
People in uniform, people at the highest levels of the intelligence community are telling me it's time that America knew this secret.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, to your point, why would these people who are so highly decorated with, such impressive resumes make any of this up? Some stunning claims. Can't wait to watch. Ross Coldhart, thank you so much, as always.
What do you think of that?
Yeah. So this is where I think things do get into like this sticky space. So I do believe you had a guest on. I can't remember the guy's name, but he talks about like the ancient ones.
Timothy Alberino.
Yeah, that dude. Like, I don't know, man. There's something about the stuff that he was talking about that I'm like, it feels like it could be closer to that.
Yeah.
So here's what I think. I think it's like a mixture, and it's like a race of who can control the narrative. For the longest time, the narrative was to deny, right?
Yeah.
I think that so many things have been, popped up or whistleblowers that it's like they're trying to reshape the narrative where the truth still we don't know.
Yeah.
And so the new narrative is like, oh, all of these things are UAP and the government's already developed our own craft. And like, we're going to have this great reveal that we've been in like whatever. But I think, again, that's going to be about controlling the narrative.
Yep.
What I'm always interested in is show me what it is that you're claiming is true, and let us make our own decision about it.
Yep.
So Kash Patel has said that he's going to have this 24/7 declassification, right?
Love it.
That is the only way, okay? Because if the government provides me with a narrative and they don't give me the source material, I don't believe a word that they say.
Yeah.
And especially when you say, trust me. Now, a little bit of that is for, if you want to say the media, you get the sound bite and someone's like, trust me, this is what's going on. And they're trying to push up their own profile. But yeah, ultimately, these are narratives meant to give control.
Yeah.
I think the truth is somewhere couched in there.
Yep.
I don't know what the truth is yet, but at least if you show it to me and you say, we've done all of this disclosure, it's all been declassified, check it out yourself, you're going to be like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, like the MK Ultra stuff, I'm super excited about that, right?
Yeah.
Like going back to the guest you had that wrote that book about chaos.
Tom O'Neill.
Yeah, Tom O'Neill. Like, I think that was fascinating.
Yeah.
I want to see the declassification of that stuff, of seeing that stuff be, redacted. Because they're saying that they're going to unredact this stuff if it's not someone that's currently in the field, a current active program.
Yep.
Like, yeah, it should be available for public consumption. Now you can always hide behind that idea of, there's an active investigation, because then that would be the only one that's left is like,
right.
Oh, so you're still doing this. That's the only reason why you're not declassifying this?
That's my one fear. Is that they're giving us all the old ones.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
distract us from all the new ones. But, well, dude, this has been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Please let everyone know where they can find you online.
Yeah. So, I'm the Republican National Committee man from the state of Minnesota. I go by AK Kamara, so you can find me in most places either as AK Kamara or real AK Kamara, because there was a fake one that took AK Kamara in a handful of places. Man. But yeah, man, I love to talk about politics, culture, news, paranormal. Yeah. I have all of these different feelings about a lot of these different topics. But yeah, man, I appreciate you bringing me on the show. Yeah, it was nice to also be able to meet Alex.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. It was nice meeting you. I'm so happy to have someone in the studio today.
It's awesome. Yeah,
even though there was so much tragedy you shared with us.
I know.
I mean, but that's life, right? Like,
that's it.
Out of all of the tragedy that always occurs, remember, there's all the amazing, beautiful things. And, having, an after show podcast about, here's all these beautiful things that have happened in my life that have brought so much joy and shown God's love and blessing.
Yeah.
But that's not as intriguing quite yet. That's not the show.
That would be fun. We'll do that one day.
Hey, just pray for all of us tonight.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, Alex, where can they find you?
Oh, you can find me at I am Alex Ayala on X only sometimes.
Only sometimes. Sweet. Thank you all for tuning in. We will be back next week. See ya.